Welcome back to the Comics Multiverse for another special edition of Doing an Interview in the Car. Um, my guest today is spearheading a project on Backer List. It's when I was young. It's a LGTBQ anthology, and yes, people may know. Hopefully, the followers of Comic Watch know that we support we have a very liberal comics agenda. And we would love to support those projects, and this is one of those projects. So I'm going to stop yapping, and I'm going to bring Michelle in and let her talk about herself and about the project itself.
Hi,
Hi,
how's it
Michelle.
going?
How's it going?
It's going well. I'm just, another day. Not quite in my car, but I might as well be, I think.
I see you have a side duck there.
Yeah, he does all my interviews with me. It's my emotional support Pokemon.
No, okay. Well, I only know that because my son is really into Pokemon. So,
Well,
but
he is the best. We're the headache club, me and the guy. So we're
so before we get
we're ready
talking,
ready to go.
so before we get talking about the project, tell me a little bit about yourself and your history with comics. Both as
Uh,
a reader, and I don't know if you're a writer or you know.
uh, I mean, growing up, I read like some comics with my sister. We were really into Generation X. It was really fun run to read, and even the made-for-TV movie that's available on YouTube now about Generation X, it does not hold up. It's not very good, but it also is the best thing I've ever seen. So if you haven't seen that, it's I guess from like the early '90s. So it's definitely I wouldn't say worth your time, but I guess worth a laugh or two.
Mhm.
And then obviously I took a bit of a break from reading and everything with school and extracurriculars and just growing up and then trying to figure out who I was as a person. And then eventually came back to comics. Learned that they're not all superheroes and X-Men, and got really into reading indie books and things that are more character centered and autobio comics, and really into indie comics as a genre. Um, I always mention Heathen by Natasha Alterici as like the comic that got me into wanting to create comics. Um, and then I started, building a community, getting to know people in comics, and eventually made my first anthology, The Color of Always, which we did on Kickstarter, and then was printed for the direct market with A Wave Blue World. It was a collection of LGBT stories about love, self love, loving others, finding out how to love, figuring out your place in the world. And then moved on to my second anthology, Sharp Wit and the Company of Women, which is an anthology of comics about sword women, women with weapons, power and agency, strength in women. And all these books are done mainly with queer creators, people in the community, to both give them opportunity, paid opportunity to make comics, and just kind of boost new voices, and pair them up with, like, in the same anthology as established creators, just to kind of get their work in front of new eyes. That's, one of my main missions as an editor, is to try to boost new voices in the industry, introduce artists and writers that people maybe haven't heard of, but have, a great voice, a great talent, something to say, something to show you. I am a bit of a writer as well. I have a couple stories out just like in my own anthologies, and I do have one that I wrote for when I was young, which is the campaign that I'm here to talk about today. You can check that out at wheniwasyoungcomic.com. That's a direct link to the Backer Kit campaign. We are, as of the moment we are recording, we are over 80% funded. We need less than $4,000 to hit our goal, and the campaign runs through March 31st. Um, I know we can get there. We're making really great progress. It's been like a slow and steady wins the race kind of campaign, and I'm so overwhelmed by the support I've gotten already for this book from comics fans, from people in the industry. It's been really wonderful to, feel like this project matters to people. It's a collection of stories about, like, the prompt for the book when I approached contributors was, a story that you would tell yourself when you were younger. a story that you, when you were younger, would have wanted to read, something that would have helped you. And so, obviously, a lot of it is targeted towards those in the LGBT community, but I think that the messaging and the trauma bonding is real, and I think there's really something in this that anyone can relate to, whether you're a member of the community or not, and regardless of what age you are. I think inspirational stories of triumph and finding love and acceptance and how you can make it through dark times. I think those kinds of things resonate with everyone.
So tell me a little bit about some of the creators, because I know some of them, I recognize, like Richard Fairgray and Kat Kalmia. And
Mhm.
so kind of tell me, about some of the, tell me about who's contributing and, the stories that they're telling.
Sure. Well, there's quite the list here. If you want to talk about Cat and Phil, they do a bunch of really wonderful anthologies and comics for the queer community that are, focused on gay characters. I'm so inspired by their work. They do so much incredible like outreach and advocacy. They're always tabling at conventions and out at pride festivals and talking to people and just being incredible members of both the gay community and the comics community. I asked them to be a part of this because they do so much incredible work, and I love their like how hard they work and their messaging of everything that they do. And Kat and Phil are both friends of mine. We sort of work in parallel to each other with doing anthology work and crowdfunding and like cons locally. We're all local to like the New York City area. So we run into each other frequently. It's always so great to see them, and I love what they do. So I was really happy when I asked them to be a part of this, and they, agreed right away, and we're just so happy to contribute. And their story in this book is about finding community by making gay comics and finding community within a community and finding out like who you are and how you can find your place um, by doing what you love and how that can sort of introduce you to other people who love the same things that you do. It's a really great message. I'm really happy that they're a part of this. Richard Fairgray. I don't what to even say about that guy. I really adore him, and we've worked together before, and he was actually a later addition to the creative team here. We ran into each other in Vancouver, and he was kind of like, "What do I have to do to let you put me in this book?" Was kind of he approached me very very threateningly at a table, and as threatening as Richard can be, and I was just kind of like, "Hey man, sure, why not? Let's talk about it. Pitch me some stuff." And his mind is so incredible. So of course he came up with what just a really sort of different and like whimsical approach to trying to fit in. And it's a really great story. It's actually finished. I got the pages in my inbox the other day. I might send out some preview pages of stuff that's already finished for backer updates within the next week. So if you haven't backed yet, get in there so that you can take a look at Richard's most recent. I don't want to call it nonsense, but I love that man so much. I'm so happy to have him in this book. He's so wild and what a storyteller. And just really grateful to have his voice in here because he does take such a different approach to storytelling. I've read a lot of what he's done. Like I really enjoyed like Octopus was one of his more recent books that he put out. I really love it. Ex-Wife of Frankenstein. Like that guy, he does some wild things, and I'm happy to have him along for the ride. Other creators, obviously Heather Antos doing interior art. This is going to be her, she says first and last interior art. So it's kind of a get it while you can kind of situation. So we've got to get this funded so that I can make her do interior artwork. She also did the logo for this book, which was, I think, her first logo. She wanted to have a crack at it. And I said, sure, why not? Like I was in the beginning stages of planning and she was like, let me just give it a try. And after some concept talk, she came up with what we have, and I think it's great. I'm really happy with it. And obviously, like, the covers are beautiful. We have a glitter cover. All I can do is think about how I'm printing glitter on a cover. I don't think enough people put glitter on covers, so I'm really happy to be doing that. I'm really excited for Stephanie Williams' story in this book. I think that her voice in this industry is just incredible, and I think we're gonna be seeing so much of her over the next few years because she's an incredible storyteller, and I think she's just gonna explode. I think I'm ready for it too. I'm happy that she is involved, and I asked her if she wanted to join, and she offered up Ryan Oakley as a collaborator on her story, and I'm so excited. Ryan's art is amazing. So what a team, honestly. I could
Mhm.
gush about every single team in this book, and I could fill so much space with it. So, is there anybody in particular that you would like me to fall all over? Please,
Um,
please speak up.
well, am I correct that you said, did you have a story in the book?
I do, yeah.
So while I have you here, let's hear about that.
I feel like I talk so little about like my own writing because I do love writing. I grew up writing. I actually like went to college for creative writing and with a poetry focus, which, what do you do with that? I like to joke that I was part of the English major to working at the mall pipeline, because I think that's kind of what most people that have, like, if you're not going to go on to teach or go on to law school, there's not much that can really be done with majoring in the creative writing field. So obviously I and worked at the mall and built skateboards. That's the obvious pipeline there. Um, so my story in this book is, I think it's just a character driven, sad story. I tend to write sad things. It's just poetic narration with like really beautiful art. And it was difficult to write. It's probably, I think everything that I write is the best thing I've ever written because I try to like not bother doing it if it's not going to be an improvement. So I
Mhm.
am obviously nervous but excited to share it with the world. I hope that this will I think I mean it's going to fund. I'm starting to be in my confidence era about this project, and I'm feeling supported, and I'm ready to get this made. I don't know. I'm excited. I think the rest of the stories in the book are better than mine because I always think everyone else's work is better than mine. But um, Sarah Onzes, who's doing the art, is amazing. I encourage everyone to look up her art. And what's her Twitter handle? Let me read it out to you because I think everyone should. I just honestly, anyone listening, like her artwork is so incredible. And I kind of reached out to her as like a dream. Like, she's going
Mhm.
to say no, but I'll reach out to her first, and if she says no, I'll figure it out. Her Twitter handle is just at ONZZES. Art is just incredible. I could not be more grateful that she said yes. And her layouts and some of the pencils on this are so just like heartbreakingly beautiful. And I'm it's very self-indulgent how excited I am to see the artwork on this because it's something that I pulled from my brain, and then she's really taken it to this to a devastating level, and I really can't wait to for myself to see it, and I can't wait for everyone else to see it as well. I think obviously I'll be a little bit partial to this one and say that the art on this one is the best, but I'm very self-deprecating, just it's who I am as a person. But obviously I love David Boer, so like I have to talk about David really quick. In this book with Jack Foster, which was another, like, I approached David. I've wanted to work with him, find a way to do it for a while. We sort of met on a doing a podcast together, and it was one of those situations where like I knew that I was going to be just like in love with him for the rest of my life, and I was like, can everyone else leave this podcast so that David and I can just like so I can just like look into his eyes. And so we've just kind of been like, keeping in touch since our first podcast meeting. And it was, I thought, a really great opportunity because this isn't the type of work that he normally does. Um, So I was excited to get him on something a little more autobiographical. And he's also said, like, if you ever want to get a little glimpse into my mind and my life, like, now this is your chance for me to
Hmm.
do something autobiographical. And he recommended Jack Foster, who I love. He's done some really great work. I'm really happy to have him in this book too. And Natasha Altarisi, who I've already mentioned Heathen, I think once on the, I'm going to talk about Heathen again. That's kind of a joke with me and my friends that I can't do an interview without mentioning Heathen. It's kind of true. And Natasha's a friend of mine now. We did the book Sapphic Pulp together, which we did on Kickstarter end of last year, and it was incredibly successful. And that's about to go to print. And Natasha is, I think, one of the most brilliant minds in comics, and I love her work, and I love working with her. And she's also gone on the Twitter record to say that this is like the autobiographical comic that she's going to do. And if you want to see something about her life, like, this is your chance. She wrote a really incredible story called Church Girls. That's a bit about, like, the influence of religion and how you feel, with growing up in a church, in a small community where the church is a big part of your life, which is something I can greatly relate to, and I think a lot of others can as well. Yeah. So, but I think it's kind of a surprising twist on it. I think it's about actually, like, more so finding community within the church
Hmm.
despite feeling outcast from a religious aspect. So it's an interesting approach, and I also relate to it in kind of an interesting way, like, not so much feeling cast out by the church, but feeling like sometimes the people within, like, keeping your enemies closer almost. I don't know, like,
Yeah.
not quite that, but the story is really great, and I am really, like, really grateful for Natasha, like, writing this story and wanting to contribute it, because I think there's a lot of people that will relate to it. And sort of the flip side of that, another, like, religious inspired story. It's like, I love anything having to do with religion because I grew up super Catholic. So I love when people can, like, inject any of their religious upbringing into stories about being queer. So Shadia Amin, they also have a story in this book that is focused on religion and finding ways to accept yourself despite, how you were raised, and how your religion teaches you, that the things that you feel and the things that you're doing are wrong. Despite that, like, finding it within yourself to feel accepted by, like, within your faith. So um I think stories about religion and feeling outcast, and I think are, unfortunately, they're very, very relatable to many people. So I think that those are going to be two, like, heavy hitters. I think every story in this book is going to be wildly on the nose and relatable for so many people, and that's why I think this is so important. And once, like, when all these stories are collected, I think it's really going to be something amazing. And I'm just really, it blows my mind that this list of creators is all contributing a story for one volume. So I think, if that alone should be reason to back it and want to read it, because when are we going to have the opportunity to have all of these people in the same book ever again, in
Right.
life or in comics? So
No, I completely get that. So I mean, I have a question. I mean, it's a lot of the stuff that a lot of the campaigns that I, have found are on Kickstarter. And you've talked about doing
mm,
Kickstarter. What was it? Was there a reason why you went with BackerKit, and kind of what's the difference there?
that's been the $1 million question. The Kickstarter is not a charity platform, and
Okay. Yeah.
it's not, like, you crowdfund to make your things, but it's not like a GoFundMe, right? Like, you
Right.
can't go on GoFundMe and raise money to make something. You can't sort of go on Kickstarter to raise money to donate to something. And though a lot of the funds that I'm raising here are to make the thing, um, a
Hmm.
built-in donation and all profits going to Trevor Project are a big part of the point of this book and the point of the campaign. So I knew I could like loophole it and probably just not talk about wanting to make the donation and not talking about charity, and Kickstarter would have been fine. But I like to tell people, if you're going to do something and say something, just like do it and say it like with your whole chest, right? Like really dive into it. So I didn't want to shy away from being honest about the donation and charity and raising money. So I had to look at platforms that didn't state that like it couldn't be a charity project.
Mm-hmm.
Like people have done Kickstarters and said that it was, you know, they were going to make charitable donations, and I didn't feel like I could run the risk of it getting shut down. And I don't
Right.
always feel like I have the best luck. So I knew that like I would be the one to get shut down for doing it despite other people having done it before. So my options were, you know, the other crowdfunding platforms and BackerKit. I thought maybe people would be more familiar with it because a lot of people use it for their surveys for Kickstarter. So I was kind of thinking of it in a way that was, there are a lot of people that run a lot of crowdfunding that end up on BackerKit, at least for the post campaign procedures
Mm-hmm.
of surveys and pre-orders. And so I don't know, it's been a bit of a challenge. They're new to crowdfunding, so their creator resources are not as great as other platforms, but the people that I've worked with there have been kind and willing to listen and wanting to learn and wanting to get better and be more supportive. So I feel a bit of a guinea pig in terms of crowdfunding comics on BackerKit, which for better or for worse just is what it is at this point. I'm doing the best I can, and things are going as well as they can go. Again, we're less than $4,000 away from funding with 11 days to go. So
Yeah.
I'm feeling kind of positive at this point that like we're gonna hit the goal. And
Mm-hmm. So, why can you talk about the Trevor Project just a little bit for
sure,
people who may not know what it
yeah,
is?
it's the mission of the Trevor Project is to combat suicide amongst LGBTQIA plus youth. So it's sort of, the point of it is to try to promote understanding and provide resources and get involved in communities to support youth and support local youth organizations to help kids in the community feel like there's a future for them, which sort of really ties into the message for the book of like going back and letting yourself know when you were younger that there is a way through the darkness, that there is a future for you. And I think especially amongst like trans youth these days, that there's a lot of, the suicide rate is so high amongst trans youth. And I it's heartbreaking to think that there are kids that feel forgotten about, that feel like with the political climate that they don't have anyone they can trust or turn to, that they don't have a future, that their lives don't matter. So I think coming up with the idea for this book and wanting to make a donation from it, it's just sort of my way to kind of give back to a community that's been there for me. So I
Mm-hmm.
think, wanting to make an impact financially by making, as much of a donation as I can. I mean, obviously, the better we do with funding, the more of a donation I can make. When I
Yeah.
was youngcomic.com, go there, donate money so that I can, make this bigger donation and make a bigger impact. Obviously, like also just putting this book out and having these stories collected for, hopefully I can get it into some libraries and try to send extra copies to youth programs. And, I try to like find the people who need these stories and get them to them. Like that's,
Mm-hmm.
I spend a lot of time really trying to like boost newer creators and younger voices in the community. And I think having some inspirational stories from people who have been around a bit is not the worst thing. So pairing the
Yeah.
book itself with trying to make this donation, I mean, the Trevor Project is an organization that I've always kind of supported and made donations to when I can, and tried to like, buy a little merch from them and support what they've got going on. So I think that, they they get it right a lot of the time with the way that they approach difficult situations in media, and I'm happy to support them and, you know, bring some great creators along for the ride to make a cool thing for people to have in thanks for their donation. So
So besides, supporting the Trevor Project and having some great, getting some great stories and art, what, if anything, do you want people to take away from the book?
I think just having a bit of a light in the darkness is the point of the book, right? Like
Mhm.
I mentioned, like trauma bonding before. I think people, it's sort of the universal experience that you're going through something hard. And there are so many difficult things in the world now and in everyone's life that might not feel like it's as impactful as some of like the horror that goes on in like in the world, but like personal struggles exist and they are important, and your struggles are valid, and it's fair to feel negatively, and everyone deserves something positive, right, to try to pull you out of those dark times. And if it's as simple as like reading like a 4-page comic when you're not in a good headspace, and maybe that provides you with some positivity, then I'm glad that, I'm happy to put together a collection of something that people can read and maybe feel a little bit better about what they're going through. So that, I think, that really is the point, just a little bit of a lantern, I guess. It can't be a light at the end of a tunnel because I can't solve systemic issues, but I can light a candle, I guess, right?
Definitely, definitely. Um, so what are you currently reading anything that, you think people should check out?
Reading. The thing that people that make comics don't get to do a lot of for fun, right?
Or report on them?
Right. It's always kind of a, what do I actually get to read because I'm enjoying it? I'm really trying to like find the time. I need to start like forcing myself, as terrible as it sounds, to carve out time to read stuff because I want to read it, not because I have to read it. God, I don't even, other than like I read some like manga like online, like some like webtoon type manga stuff. Like other than that, I think can't even remember the last thing I read because I wanted to read it. Like I can plug books for work. I can like, oh, this is a this shouldn't be a difficult question, but like it is because I read so much. I read so much for work that like the
Yeah.
last books that I read were like for my job, and uh, like I read like the Women of Marvel anthology that came out a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
I read that. Um, what else did I buy? I try to hit comic shops occasionally. I've been picking up Poison Ivy. I really want to read it. I have it. I'm excited to read it. Uh, Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow is a book I've read a couple times. Obviously, like love that one.
Mhm.
Even read a million times. I read that. I've been like rereading old Sailor Moon manga. I think there's a bit of a nostalgia element, and like that's kind of like a low stress thing to read, something that I've already read. And I have such
Mhm.
a large to be read pile, but I tend to just like grab at stuff I've already read already because I can predict my emotional reaction. So I think like rereading Sailor Moon, I reread that more frequently than I think anybody should, but maybe also not enough. Um,
Okay.
I have like a my favorite manga to read online right now is called My Dear Lass, and it's just a like a Chinese like story about a girl who lives on a peach farm, and it's just the cutest thing, and the art is so pretty, and it's currently in progress. It's not finished, and when there's an update, me and my group chat yell about it, and it's like my one thing that I allow myself to read for fun these days. But there are worse things, and I'm sort of resolved to give myself a better work-life balance. And my to be read pile is quite large. It's embarrassingly large, but I continue to buy books and support creators. And I really want to read
Hmm.
that Beneath the Trees book from IDW Originals with the murder teddy bear. That's on the
Yeah.
list. I'd
All
love
right.
to
Well,
read more.
so and as we wrap up, because I gotta
Sure.
run myself. So can you give like one last pitch for the campaign where people can find it and where they can find you on social media?
Awesome, Chad. Thank you. Yeah. When I Was Young is on BackerKit right now. You can find it at whenIwasyoungcomic.com. It is a 100 plus pages. We keep adding more. 100 plus page comic anthology of stories of advice and triumph, focusing on experiences of people from the LGBTQIA plus community. But truly, there is something in there that everyone will be able to relate to. The art is beautiful. The stories are incredible. Just so they're just so filled with like heart and just some incredible voices in here. The list of creators is incredible. Check it out. WhenIwasyoungcomic.com. There's a full list of the creators there. The campaign wraps on March 31st. We are almost to our goal, but every little bit helps, and all profits are being donated to the Trevor Project to support their mission of ending suicide amongst the LGBTQIA plus youth. You can find me on Twitter at Cereal Pancake, the two breakfast foods, Instagram at I
Yeah.
Like Pancakes, Blue Sky Cereal Pancake. Um, yeah, excited to have been given this chance to talk about it. So I really do appreciate you.
All right. Well, thank you and good luck on the campaign, and we'll be in touch. Well, maybe we'll talk for the next project too.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chad. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.